Welcome to Twisted Truths, where betrayal meets brutal payback, and where the most unexpected twists expose what people are really capable of. This story isn't just shocking, it's personal. My name is Ismael. I'm 39, a systems compliance expert, and for 7 years, I gave everything I had to a company that promised loyalty in return. But I learned the hard way that corporate loyalty only lasts until your usefulness threatens someone else's ego. I had just buried my grandmother, my rock, my second mother, the woman who raised me when my own parents died in a car crash when I was 12. I took 4 days off, with my supervisor's written permission, to attend her funeral and help my uncle sort through her belongings in rural Arkansas. It was quiet out there, no cell signal, just silence and memories. I thought I'd come back with a heavy heart but a clear conscience. Instead, I returned to find my employee badge deactivated and a cold email sitting in my inbox titled, "Your services are no longer required." No call. No meeting. Just a spreadsheet calculating my severance down to the cent. I stared at the screen, fingers trembling, rereading the email until the words blurred. It claimed my unplanned absence had disrupted ongoing compliance operations. That I had abandoned my post during a critical audit window. That my position was being phased out due to realignment. What the hell did that even mean? I sat in the parking lot outside Access Point Compliance Solutions, the company I'd helped build from a glorified tech startup into a trusted federal contractor. I'd been there from the start, trained nearly every junior hire, and handled our 2 largest government clients who specifically asked for me by name. Now I was just gone. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, staring up at the 3rd-floor office window that used to be mine, while the security guard, Marcus, a kind man who always complimented my coffee choices, knocked gently on my window. "I'm sorry, man," he said. "I was told to escort you off the property." I nodded. "Not your fault. But it was someone's fault. And I already knew whose. His name was Travis. Travis Maddox. A smug, clean-cut operations manager with perfect teeth and zero soul. He'd arrived 3 years ago with a degree in business psychology and a talent for memorizing buzzwords. He didn't understand our technical systems. He didn't care to. But he knew how to look important in front of executives and how to swing a knife when no one was looking. The warning signs had been there. Like when he started scheduling meetings during our lunch breaks and randomly auditing people's sick days. Like when he reduced our paid bereavement time without notice and publicly called it streamlining loss management. I should have seen it coming. I should have known that when he told me, of course, take time off for your grandmother, family comes first, he was already setting me up. He didn't even hide his condescension. "But make it quick," he'd added, "we've got the Delta Tech audit coming up." And I had made it quick. Came back ready to work. Loyal. Committed. They were already replacing me. That night, I drove for hours. Not home. Just around. Eventually, I ended up at my grandmother's grave. Fresh dirt still piled over her casket. I sat on the hood of my truck and stared at the stone. "You were right, Grandma," I whispered. "People don't change, they just hide it better in suits." My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from my former trainee, Layla. "What happened?" "Travis just announced you quit and moved himself into your role." Then another from Marcus W., our lead data analyst. "They said you were non-compliant with attendance protocols. Bullsh *T. And finally, a message that made my stomach twist. "Travis told the execs you were already interviewing with competitors. Said you planned this." My jaw clenched. It was all a setup. Travis didn't just fire me. He erased me, rewrote my story while I was grieving. And I let him. But not for long. Because what Travis didn't understand was that I hadn't just worked at Access Point, I had become Access Point. Every major client, every system upgrade, every workaround during a crash, that was me. They thought they could replace me. I was about to show them exactly what happens when you remove the foundation from a building that's still standing. I didn't sleep that night. After I left my grandmother's grave, I just drove around aimlessly until the sky turned that bruised purple shade before sunrise. I finally parked outside my apartment and sat in my truck for another 2 hours, staring at the cracked sidewalk like it held answers. That morning, everything hit me. Not just the job, but what it represented. 7 years. I built my identity around being the guy who came through. No matter how bad it got, no matter who dropped the ball, I was the one who showed up, cleaned the mess, and never asked for recognition. It wasn't just a job. It was my anchor. Now I was a 39-year-old man with no job, a non-compete clause that barred me from working in my own field, and a savings account that might last 3 months, for if I cut groceries. That day I didn't open my laptop. Didn't update my resume. Didn't even call anyone back. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the only photo I had left of my grandmother in the living room. She was smiling, holding a basket of biscuits at a family cookout 10 years ago. I remember that day. She pulled me aside and said, "Ismael, don't let people treat you like an accessory. You are the table, not the decoration on it." But I'd forgotten that. I'd let myself become useful instead of valuable. Replaceable instead of respected. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Layla. "He's telling people you left because you couldn't handle the Henderson audit. Said you were burned out." Then Marcus. "HR says you violated internal communication protocols. No one believes it, but they're scared to speak up." And finally, a call. Unknown number. I let it ring. Then another. Same number. I picked up. "Ismael." The voice was sharp, deliberate. "Colonel Ana Vasquez, my point of contact at Delta Tech Security Solutions, one of Access Point's largest clients." "Yes, ma'am. I've been calling your office line. They told me you no longer work there. Is that true?" "It is." There was a pause. "That's unfortunate. You were the only reason we trusted that company." I had to sit through a briefing today with some guy named Travis Maddox. He rescheduled our audit review because he had a networking brunch. He also asked me what SOC2 compliance stood for. "That's basic." I swallowed hard. "I'm sorry to hear that." "You shouldn't be," she replied. "They should. If you land somewhere else, you call me first." She hung up. My hands shook. Another call, minutes later. Dr. Nora Chang, head of compliance at Grant Field Innovations, our biotech client. "Ismael, please tell me the rumors aren't true." "I wish I could. We have a multi-million-dollar regulatory submission due in 6 weeks. Travis doesn't even know our encryption protocols. He literally suggested we downgrade our security to make file transfers faster. Do you know how reckless that is?" I winced. "I'm sorry, Dr. Chang." "No. I'm sorry. For you. And for Access Point. They just lost their soul." That was the moment the despair stopped being about me. Because now, I saw it wasn't just betrayal. It was a slow-motion train wreck, and I had the entire blueprint of how it would crash. But I still felt stuck. My hands were tied by that damn non-compete clause. 12 months. I couldn't work for any direct competitor. And Access Point worked with nearly every serious contractor in our region. I called the only person who might be able to help. Steve Morrison, employment lawyer. We'd met at a compliance conference years ago and kept in touch. "Ismael," he answered. "What happened?" I told him everything. The funeral, the permission, the termination email. The NDA. The non-compete. Travis. All of it. When I was done, there was silence. Then he said, "You have a serious wrongful termination case. Especially if you have that email giving you time off." "I do." "That's gold. But, the non-compete is still enforceable in Missouri. Unless we prove you were targeted maliciously." "I was." "Then let's build the case." But cases take time. Money. Patience. None of which I had in large supply. Over the next few days, I fell into a rhythm of helplessness. Wake up. Stare at the ceiling. Clean the garage. Rewatch old video calls from work. Wonder if I was really as good as I thought I was. Doubt creeps in like mold when you've been kicked out of the world you helped build. Then one afternoon, while boxing up old training manuals, my phone pinged with a new email. The sender, Travis Maddox. The subject line: follow-up regarding prior client contacts. My stomach twisted. He was asking for my old passwords, clarification on my notes with Dr. Chang, and if I had any pending feedback from Delta Tech's last audit. He was scrambling. And worse, he thought I'd help him. I didn't reply. But I did open a new folder on my desktop. I labeled it Reclamation Plan. Because the moment that email hit my inbox, I wasn't broken anymore. I was done grieving. It was time to rebuild. But not for them. For me. And when I did, I was taking back everything they thought they stole. The day I created the Reclamation Plan folder was the first time I felt like myself again. Not just the broken man who'd been thrown out, but the quiet strategist who always saw 3 moves ahead. I didn't know what my plan would be yet. Not fully. But I knew this. I wasn't going to let the person who ambushed me rewrite my legacy and steal what I built. That night, I reread my non-compete clause a dozen times. And I started noticing something. It prohibited me from engaging with direct competitors, operating within the compliance and audit space for federally contracted clients. But it said nothing about consulting. Nothing about adjacent industries. Nothing about clients initiating contact. It wasn't a wall, it was a maze. And I had just found a hidden path. The next day, I opened an old notebook where I used to jot things down during internal meetings. Not work stuff, Travis stuff. I didn't keep it to be petty. I kept it because I learned early on that people like him thrive in silence. If you don't document the small things, they turn into monsters. June 12, Travis asked me to resend a client's audit findings under his name. July 3, he publicly took credit for the technical workaround I designed for Delta Tech's encrypted failover system. August 19, Travis forgot to send the final files to Dr. Chang, then blamed me for the delay. I flipped through dozens of pages. Patterns. Lies. Mismanagement. But one entry stopped me cold. October 14 to 11:37 a.m. Spoke with James Grant from Grant Field. He asked if I was planning to leave Access Point. Said Travis mentioned I was fielding offers. I had completely forgotten that moment. James had pulled me aside on a Zoom call, casually asked how happy I was. I thought it was innocent small talk at the time. Apparently, Travis had used it as proof I was disloyal. He'd been planting the narrative for months. My firing wasn't random, it was engineered. But here's where it gets better. While digging through old emails, I found something from Colonel Vasquez. A thread from a month before I was fired. She had asked me if Access Point would be expanding into cybersecurity compliance, because they needed someone who understood federal defense and digital compliance crossover. I'd told her we didn't have the infrastructure yet, but I was willing to learn more. Now it clicked. Travis wanted to claim that space for himself. He wanted to control that future vertical, without me in it. And if that were true, I had a weapon. Because Access Point's cybersecurity capabilities were laughable. It was a stretch they'd survive without me. But if I positioned myself as an independent consultant offering cyber compliance advisory, I could bypass the non-compete and poach their biggest clients, legally. I called Steve, my lawyer. Hypothetically, I said, if I provided specialized consulting services not offered by Access Point, that wouldn't violate the agreement, right? There was a pause. As long as you don't present yourself as a competing firm and you stay outside their scope of work, that's a viable loophole. I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding. The rules of the game hadn't changed. But I had just found a brand new board to play on. That same evening, my phone rang again. Ismael. The voice was weary, but familiar. Dr. Nora Chang. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry to bother you, but I have a question. Of course. Do you have any idea why our audit reports are now showing a 37% error rate? I blinked. What? I asked Travis, and he said your documentation wasn't comprehensive enough. But the timestamps show he overwrote your reports and replaced your charts with generalized templates. I didn't respond at first. Because I felt something inside me click. That's how he was doing it. He wasn't just fumbling the transition, he was covering up my work. Travis was going back into my old reports and deleting evidence that clients ever relied on me in the first place. Dr. Chang continued, I've already sent a complaint to Naima, your old CEO. But honestly, we're getting ready to pull our contract. I'm sorry, I said quietly. Don't be. I just wanted you to know, you weren't the problem. I hung up and immediately opened my hard drive. I had backups of everything. Every technical report. Every audit note. Every client-specific compliance model that I had ever written under Access Point. I wasn't dumb enough to keep proprietary code, but documentation. Analysis. Best practices. All mine. And now, they were all going into a new file. Phoenix Protocol. That weekend, I sat down and wrote 2 pitch decks. One for Colonel Vasquez at Delta Tech, focusing on cyber defense compliance migration. One for Dr. Chang, who would need high-level pharmaceutical audit structuring under the new federal tracking legislation. Both services were outside Access Point's contract offerings. Both required expert knowledge Travis didn't have. Both were things I had mastered over the past 7 years. I wasn't building a consulting plan anymore. I was building my return. And for the first time in weeks, I smiled. Not because I was healed. But because I was armed. I once read that revenge isn't about getting even, it's about regaining control. For weeks, I had been powerless, discarded, and rewritten. Now. I had leverage, I had facts, and I had fire in my chest. It was time to plan. The first move wasn't dramatic. It was precise. I emailed Colonel Vasquez and Dr. Chang separately. I kept it respectful. Professional. Offered to consult on areas Access Point didn't cover, advisory work, not audits. I mentioned I was exploring independent services in cybersecurity protocols and pharmaceutical compliance documentation. Both replied within hours. Colonel Vasquez. Finally. I was waiting for this. Send a proposal. Let's talk Monday. Dr. Chang. We're exploring new partners. You'd be at the top of that list. Let's discuss scope. And with that, the foundation was set. But this wasn't just about landing new contracts. This was about exposing Travis for what he was. I needed a way back into Access Point, not as an employee, but as a ghost. A shadow in the machine. Someone who could document every error and misstep he made until the company had no choice but to implode, or beg me back. I called Layla, my former trainee. She answered instantly. Ismael. Oh my God. Everyone here is still in shock. It's like the place is falling apart. You okay? She hesitated. Not really. They moved Travis into your old office. Said he's now director of client oversight. But he's messing everything up. Clients are pissed. People are scared. I need your help, Layla. But only if you're comfortable. There was no pause. Whatever you need. I sent her a small script to use whenever a client asked about me. We're in a transitional phase. Mr. Maddox is still being brought up to speed. Would you like your concerns documented in writing for senior leadership? That line was everything. It was legal. It was non-accusatory. But it created a paper trail, showing that Access Point clients were flagging Travis's incompetence in real time. Over the next week, Layla forwarded me internal complaints, quietly, from her personal email. I never asked for anything classified, only confirmations of things I already knew. Colonel Vasquez's report stating error rates had tripled since my termination. Dr. Chang's memo about regulatory non-compliance under Travis's oversight. A staff-wide email from Travis blaming legacy documentation gaps for audit failures. Legacy documentation. That was me. He was already rewriting history, gaslighting everyone into believing his incompetence was inherited. But I wasn't done. My next call was to Danny, a junior analyst I mentored. We met at a cafe 2 blocks from Access Point. He looked nervous, like someone who knew he was walking a line but was willing to risk it. It's bad in there, he whispered. He's trying to centralize everything. Removed 2 project leads. Started rerouting client emails directly to his inbox. Even from Delta Tech and Grant Field. Especially them. He's afraid they'll reach out to you. Too late for that. Danny, I said, I need you to keep track of any critical failures. Audit reports, meeting no-shows, anything Travis messes up that affects client retention. I'm not trying to lose my job. You won't. You're documenting reality. And when this is over, I'm going to make sure you're promoted. He stared at me for a long second, then nodded. I'm in. By the end of the week, I had 2 high-paying clients ready to sign consulting contracts. Internal documentation showing Travis was bleeding trust. Allies inside the company feeding me critical updates. And I wasn't done. Because now it was time to bring in Steve, my lawyer. We met at his office. I handed him a flash drive with selected emails, audio notes, and a timeline showing exactly how Travis had orchestrated my termination. This is a strong wrongful termination case, Steve said, scrolling. Especially with written proof of approved leave and retaliatory behavior. I want more than compensation, I told him. I want my reputation back. My authority. And the position they said I was too replaceable to deserve. He leaned back in his chair. We file a demand letter. Offer reinstatement with back pay, or we go public. No lawsuit yet. Just pressure. Good. But Ismael, are you sure you want to go back? I thought about that. Thought about the office I built. The clients I fought for. The culture I tried to protect. And how Travis twisted all of it. I don't want to go back to what I had, I said quietly. I want to rebuild it in my image. And I want to make sure no one else ever gets blindsided like I did. Steve nodded. Then we're in business. 2 days later, Access Point's legal team received our demand. Reinstatement. Back pay. Title promotion. Oversight authority. Hiring power. Or. Lawsuit. Media coverage. Loss of federal contracts due to operational mismanagement. But while the lawyers read our demand, I was already helping Colonel Vasquez draft a new cybersecurity audit system. I was coaching Dr. Chang's team through pharmaceutical compliance matrices. And I was silently watching as Access Point's biggest clients began questioning whether they'd made a fatal mistake trusting Travis Maddox. They say the best revenge is living well. I disagree. The best revenge is watching the person who tried to erase you unravel in front of the very people he tried to impress. And that's exactly what started happening the moment my plan moved from theory to action. It started with an email. From Naeema Hassan, Axis Point CEO. The same woman who hired me fresh out of grad school. She was always sharp, no nonsense. But lately, she'd been silent. Detached. Subject line, urgent, Axis Point status and legal inquiry. Ismael. We've received a letter from your counsel. I'd like to speak directly, off the record. There have been developments. Please let me know if you're available today. I didn't reply right away. I wanted her to sweat. Instead, I called Colonel Vasquez to finalize her new compliance framework. She had already wired the first consulting payment. Independent. Legal. Outside Axis Point scope. And best of all, she told me, we're putting Travis's team on a 30-day review. If they can't fix these audit errors, we're pulling the contract. That same afternoon, Dr. Chang called to say her company was issuing a formal performance complaint to Axis Point's board. She CC'd Naeema. The complaint listed every missed deadline, inaccurate protocol, and, my favorite, Travis's persistent confusion regarding federal regulatory structures. Her closing line. This level of incompetence is not only unacceptable, it's dangerous. Meanwhile, Layla and Danny kept feeding me information like it was oxygen. Danny forwarded an email Travis sent to the C-suite that morning. We're working through transitional turbulence post-restructuring. No cause for alarm. I've introduced a new top-down communication model to improve client efficiency. Translation. He was panicking. I finally agreed to meet Naeema. Not in the building. I wasn't stepping foot in that glass tower until I had the upper hand. We met in a hotel lounge 5 blocks from Axis Point's HQ. She looked tired. Not just exhausted, haunted. Thank you for coming, Ismael. I didn't answer. She pulled out a folder. Here's what you need to know. Inside, copies of complaint letters from Delta Tech, Grant Field, and a third one I hadn't expected, Henderson Defense Systems, a prospective merger partner I'd helped court months earlier. We were negotiating a merger with Henderson, Naeema said. They backed out yesterday. Said our client retention rates were unstable and declining. Their lawyers saw the writing on the wall. And you're just now realizing Travis was a liability? Her jaw clenched. I trusted him. Thought he was ambitious. Structured. I didn't see what he was really doing. Which was consolidating power. Replacing people who made him look weak. Fabricating metrics. Rewriting your records to make it look like you were dispensable. I leaned back in my chair. And now? Now we're hemorrhaging accounts. Travis's audit reports are full of contradictions. His meetings with clients are being rescheduled or cancelled altogether. Dr. Chang refuses to speak with him. Vasquez won't even take his emails. And yesterday, he suggested we sue you for breach of confidentiality. I laughed. Loudly. Naeema didn't. Instead, she continued, I suspended him. Effective immediately. Legal is reviewing his conduct. But I need to do more than damage control. I need you back. I paused. I want terms in writing. Done. I want a 20% salary increase. Authority over all compliance divisions. And veto power over all client-facing personnel. Naeema blinked. You want to restructure the entire leadership tree? No, I said. I want to fix what Travis broke. Starting with my name. She didn't hesitate. Deal. While Naeema drafted the reinstatement agreement, I launched my final move. I sent a formal statement of availability to 3 mid-tier firms who had flirted with Axis Point but never signed on, firms Travis had once dismissed as too small to matter. But I knew better. I'd worked with their junior managers at conferences. I knew they were growing fast, and needed oversight they could trust. Within 72 hours, 2 of them responded. We heard about what happened at Access Point. You've got our attention. Just like that, I had my own independent pipeline. Whether or not I returned to Access Point, I was no longer dependent on them. And that was exactly how I wanted it. Then the final blow landed. Danny texted. He's gone. Travis was escorted out of the building 30 minutes ago. Whole floor clapped. Followed by Layla. HR just sent a company-wide email. Subject, Compliance Transition Update. They're bringing you back. I opened the official email 5 minutes later. It was short. Cold. Factual. Effective immediately, Travis Maddox is no longer with Access Point. All compliance oversight will be managed by Ismael ____, our newly appointed Director of Client Strategy and Relations. I smiled. 7 years of loyalty. 1 funeral. 4 days of absence. And a man who thought he could erase me. Now. He was gone. And I was back. I returned to Access Point on a Monday. Same building. Same badge. Same glass elevator humming like nothing had ever changed. But everything had. The security guard nodded at me, this time with a grin. Layla and Danny greeted me in the lobby with the kind of relief you usually reserve for a rescue helicopter. I wasn't just back. I was back on my terms. My nameplate now read: Director of Client Strategy and Relations. Oversight authority over every compliance team. Full access to restructure. But the biggest change wasn't the title. It was the power shift. The same people who used to avoid eye contact with me in meetings now wanted my input. Clients who had gone silent after my firing were suddenly calling direct lines again. Everyone could feel it. Even Naima, the CEO, didn't hide it when we met in her office. I should have seen it, she said. Travis never understood the work. Just the optics. I said nothing. Let her stew in it. She handed me a file, one I hadn't seen before. It was Travis's severance agreement. Inside, his final audit scores, complaints from every major client, and a note written by Henderson Defense Systems that chilled me. We have reason to believe that Mr. Maddox falsified retention projections during merger discussions. Falsified. It was more than incompetence. It was fraud. Naima looked at me. Would you like to file a formal complaint with the DOJ? I stared at the page for a long time. No. She blinked. No. I want something better. I reached into my briefcase and slid over a list. My conditions, new ones. Full veto power over all senior hires in compliance. Mandatory client satisfaction reviews every quarter. A codified bereavement policy, guaranteed leave with legal protection. And a merit-based promotion system to protect analysts like Danny and Layla. Naima skimmed it, then looked up. This is a complete restructure. No, I said. This is survival. The way it should have been all along. She nodded. I'll get it done. I could have stopped there. Could have sat back, taken my pay raise, and rebuilt the house Travis tried to burn down. But one last twist was waiting, and I didn't see it coming. It started with a voicemail. From a blocked number. Ismael. It's Travis. My blood chilled. I know I messed up. But you need to know, you weren't the only one I targeted. I replayed the message. Again. And again. Then it hit me. He wasn't acting alone. That night, I dug deeper. Backed up my files. Reviewed internal notes from the past 6 months. And I started to see them, subtle red flags I had missed before. HR had rubber-stamped my termination without review. Legal had signed off on a non-compete clause more aggressive than anything they'd used previously. Travis had been whispering things to Naima about me for over a year, and she hadn't once verified them. Why? Because I wasn't just a threat to Travis's ego. I was a threat to Access Point's structure. My direct relationships with high-profile clients meant I could leave, and take them with me. They all knew it. And when Travis offered them a risk-free transition plan that eliminated that threat, they took it. I hadn't just been betrayed by one man. The entire upper structure had gambled that I'd stay silent. But I didn't. And now? They were working for me. The next morning, I walked into Naima's office before she even had her coffee. I want a clause added to my contract. She glanced up. Which one? That if I ever step down, I retain ownership of all client processes I built. All frameworks. All IP. She blinked. That's not standard. I'm not standard. She sat back in her chair, reading me. You're planning something. No, I said calmly. I'm protecting something. Naima didn't push. She signed the clause. Smart woman. Because deep down, she knew. I'd already built something bigger than Access Point. The clients? They followed me. The processes? I created them. The reputation? That was mine. And if they ever betrayed me again, I'd take it all with me. There's a quiet power in walking back into a place that once cast you out. And having everyone lower their voices when you pass. But for me, power was never the point. Respect was. I didn't want revenge that ended in destruction. I wanted something deeper, a legacy they couldn't erase. 3 months after my reinstatement, Access Point looked very different. I had restructured the entire compliance team. Gone were the spreadsheet tyrants and buzzword charlatans. In their place, analysts like Danny, who now ran the cybersecurity division. Layla, who was promoted to senior client liaison. Jessica, from accounting, remember her? The one Travis called excessive for having pneumonia. She became our new HR coordinator, and the first thing she did. Implemented a compassionate bereavement policy in my grandmother's name. The Fulton Clause. That alone made everything worth it. But justice? Justice came quietly. One morning, I got an email from Delta Tech's procurement office. Final audit scores back under your oversight, error margin reduced by 92%. Reinstating multi-year contract. Another came hours later from Grant Field. Performance under new advisory model exceeded expectations. Moving forward with 3-year renewal. And the final blow? Henderson Defense Systems, the company that had backed out of a merger due to Travis's mismanagement. Now that leadership has changed, we're reopening merger discussions. Naima forwarded that one with a simple note. Thanks for saving this place. Again. I didn't reply. She knew. They all did. And then, one day, I got another voicemail. Travis. Again. His voice sounded different this time, strained. Hollow. You won, man. They gave me nothing. Severance stripped. Reputation shot. I hear you're running everything now. Guess they figured out you weren't replaceable after all. I didn't save the message. Didn't need to. I already had everything I wanted. Not his pain. My peace. There's a photo on my new office wall now. It's not of clients. Not of awards. Not even of my team. It's my grandmother, sitting on her porch, holding a mug of sweet tea, squinting into the sun like she's sizing up the world. She used to say, "Baby, the truth always rises. Even if it comes up through the mud." She was right. Because the truth is, I gave Access Point 7 years of loyalty. They gave me 4 lines in a termination email. And I turned that betrayal into the blueprint for everything they never saw coming. In the end, truth has a way of surfacing, even if it comes twisted through pain and betrayal. As one wise voice once said, sometimes your greatest enemy was once your closest ally. If this story struck a chord with you, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and spread the word, because justice deserves to be heard.